are going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for coming. I want to take a moment and introduce Polly Benson. We're going to go ahead and get started. Polly Benson has been an occupational therapist for 33 years. Most recently, she has invented a stamp called the LEGILINER, which I didn't know that. I have a LEGILINER. A parent gave it to me.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. And has created over 20 different patterns to quickly draw lines for handwriting, music, and math. LEGILINERs are self-inking, rolling ink stamps, and are refillable. She graduated from the Ohio State University and is an active member of AOTA. What is that?
That's the American Occupational Therapy Association.
She started her career in outpatient and work hardening, then did home health, moved into acute care and rehabilitation, and has spent the last 20 years in school-based practice. She enjoys volunteering at church and playing tennis and pickleball on her neighborhood teams. She is known nationally as a continuing education speaker and an expert on all things handwriting, fine motor, and apps for engaging students in OT. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Okay, so this is Messy Writing Woes, how to help kids with handwriting challenges who need OT. So many of you know there's kids in your classrooms or kids that you work with, and you kind of can identify a little bit ahead of time that child needs OT. And you're really not sure maybe if they're younger how to go about getting the OT, or maybe there's a delay. Maybe you have to get them evaluated. Maybe there is a third or fourth grade student that they didn't qualify for OT. So what we're going to talk about today is some of those OT challenges that you might see in your classroom and how you can start to implement some techniques and things that will help you to guide them down better paths so that they can address some of those problems ahead of time. Okay, so this is my dog Bandit, and that's my little LEGILINER there. And I am married. I have 3 children. All 3 of them have special needs in their own way, but my oldest and my youngest, my boys, both have Tourette syndrome. So I've been a therapist, I've been a parent in an IEP process, and I've been a teacher. So I know where a lot of these parents, the things they have to deal with, as well as the teachers and what you have to deal with. So as she said, I've been in the school system for over 20 years, so it's interesting to see the changes, whereas when I first started there was very little technology. As time went on, I did continuing education in how to implement the iPad into the classroom and how to implement technology as a tool and technology as a parallel play to the actual handwriting process. And now I've developed a stamp in addition to, now with ChatGPT and all these other things that we're starting to see, I'm still a traditionalist. I love the handwriting. I love getting out paper and pencil and let the child be creative. So, this is Jordan. And Jordan was one of my students that had autism. And she implemented the Be Kind to Everyone. So if you've seen the t-shirts or the whole, her mother helped her over one summer. It was called the Summer Shirt Project. And her mother helped her to gain some work skills. So they started selling t-shirts. This was the first t-shirt they had. And Jordan would wrap them. She would roll them and wrap them. And she learned later, we worked on writing her name. And so one of the things with Jordan was she would overlap some letters. And this is all we worked on. She's probably 17 in this picture. And she would overlap her letters. So we came up with an idea of making 6 different lines, 6 spaced lines for her to write her name. And so that helped her, that visual cue helped Jordan to spread out her name and not overlap. We eventually went into making a stamp for her. It was just a regular rubber stamp. And then she would stamp every card that she sent out with her t-shirts and then write her name and write her name. And so that was her handwriting practice. So she did some very functional work skills, wrapping in the t-shirts, putting them in an envelope, and then she stamped her name or stamped her blanks and then would write her name. And so her mom inspired me to start my business because she worked with a program called Shopify, and so she taught me. So Jordan taught me a lot, I taught Jordan a lot, and it's just this world goes round. But I want to know from you. So this is why I went into teaching. I want to help students. I assume a lot of you have a passion to help students. What do you feel is your biggest struggle in this day and age versus maybe what you've seen in the past? Like now we're post-COVID, now we've got technology. What are some of the struggles that you're dealing with handwriting? Yes?
In the upper L, it seems like kids write very, very faintly. And I don't know if this is from a lack of writing and developing the pressure, more, maybe they're more keyboard at home. But I feel like the letters that they write just dissolve into a white space.
Okay.
And me at 65, I'm like double blind, literally double blind. Yeah, but I wonder about this lack of pressure.
Okay, good. Yes.
I'm also an upper L, and I have a lot of students coming into me right now who I can tell like COVID impacted them because it's almost as though they're like a primary level of handwriting.
Okay.
It's very labored. It's very blocky. You can tell that it's not second nature to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I am. Is like the spacing's off. The letters are different sizes.
Okay. Awesome. That's very good feedback. And I do see that as well. Yeah. Anyone else? What are some of your struggles? Yes.
I teach in the 6 to 9 program, and I'm getting way more kids who do not have correct pencil grip.
Okay.
Their hand is not strong enough for handwriting, and they're not using the correct pencil for a pen when they come into the
Yes.
book.
Good point. Yes.
I'm also in lower L, and I was just gonna say pencil grip, but another thing I've noticed is that I'm finding more and more of them that we teach cursive, and certain letters you have to break down even into 3 different parts to show them because they're unable to process an entire B. So you have to do the loop part for days, and then do this part, and then attach it, and I've not seen that prior to recently.
Okay. That's a very interesting point because cursive is a fluency. And so it sounds like they aren't having the fluency to connect the letters. Okay, very interesting. Yes, what else?
I teach in children's house, but I very curious about how I can help the kids when they are more left hands.
Okay.
Because it's very hard for me to guide the kids when they very interested to write them, but every time they some kids have more abilities to write them very early about the tree, and they are very interested to write in letters, but they write it opposite side or in the correct way, and I'm working a lot with the material, but they continue to do, and how I can help the kids with holding the pencil and writing the correct way.
Okay, good. Good. Yes. So a lot of what you are talking about are foundational skills, and we're going to cover that in a minute. I'm going to play a video for you here. This is a 4th grader, finished 3rd grade, going into 4th grade, I believe. Let me see if I can get that to play. Oh, it wants to take me to the internet. Let me see if I have it.
That gentleman that stopped in to check on you was
George.
right there. Do you want
Yeah.
me to get George?
Does anyone know the Wi-Fi code?
You may go find George and ask him.
Yeah, he's right out here.
Okay.
So while she's getting George, we'll go ahead and cover a couple of those foundational skills, and see if we'll come back to the video.
Are you on the
Mm-mm.
main conference network? There's no password needed for that.
Okay, so is it MSR?
No, it's not. It's
Oh, I see it.
see it. It's open, so there's no password.
Okay. Got it. I just had it downloaded on my. And what about sound?
Sound should come out on the projector. Let me see if the volume is up. Okay, give her a try.
Trying to get this window over there. There we go.
Its mom is our 8-year-old third grader, or actually technically fourth grader. And we are all neighbors of Polly's.
Can you turn your volume
And
up
the
on your
oldest
computer?
and first, so we are learning about school as we go.
Okay, it's just low.
And all the things that go along with it. I feel like there's a problem here that I don't know what it is. And that if I don't stay on top of it and put my own time and effort into that, it's gonna become, yes, it's gonna grow and grow, and then we're gonna get, older and have bigger concerns to worry about. And I don't feel like I'm able to get a good grasp on what he's getting in school. I had a patient who was at OT, and I was talking to her at her visit, and she said, well, handwriting is ingrained by third grade. You really can't change it. And I kind of panicked. This is what your child's doing. Like, they show you the writing journals and the progression, but I still was kind of very clueless as a mom as far as like what's normal, what should we be doing. Still noticed we weren't making letters the way I learned, but I didn't know if that's normal. We've had great teachers every year, great school. I was told he's a boy, he's young, he might just be rushing, it'll come, be patient. Again, lots of reassurance. He's smart, he's doing great, his math and science is excellent. I asked a little bit about testing because I don't know what sort of standardized testing. All I can compare it to is when I was a child.
Right.
And so I don't know, like, I've never gotten like where he falls on scales and they're like, oh, he doesn't do that till third grade. I don't know. But
Yeah.
all just lots of reassurance that he's doing great and there's no worries. Don't worry about the handwriting. In second grade, we brought it up at a teacher conference and she said, oh, he'll start typing soon. Don't worry. And then I'm like, okay. And then third grade, we had heard is a really important year for academic development and that it's a big year when you really start seeing discrepancies in academics and performance, and you really need to stay on top of it. So I tried to okay, what are we doing? And that's when I really did notice that some of his handwriting compared to his peers, because they were doing group projects, it was not the same. At his fall conference, she was like, oh, we're about to start cursive, he'll be typing more. But I was like, I really think we need to start really focusing on the legibility of his handwriting because we're still not forming letters top to bottom, left to right, on paper with the lines. He wasn't touching the lines. It just felt like it should be there by then. And I wasn't really seeing any change from pre-K, kindergarten to third grade. And I started worrying about, what about math? And we're doing higher level math and things need to line up neatly. And what if he starts losing points academically because it looks like he doesn't have the right answer because it's not legible. And so I started feeling like I was getting reassurance every year, but I still was feeling like something wasn't right, and I don't want my child to fall through the cracks. Didn't really even figure out who was in network, how to make an appointment, other than a private evaluation was going to be $250 and then $150 a session. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I don't know how we're going to swing that, being full-time working parents and trying to have fun at home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so what I love about this is a parent's perspective. And so sometimes we think we know what the parent needs to hear, but we don't really know what that parent's feeling. So what are some of the things, it was hard to hear, but what are some of the things that you heard in her video with what are her struggles? What is she seeing at home? Fear? Okay. Yes?
Well, she was never really taken seriously.
Okay.
What she had to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's,
yeah.
that's the sense I got, is she's just, it's okay, we're gonna start typing.
Right.
That's
You
not
y'all
how
giggled
we
at that.
talk.
We're gonna start typing soon. Well, kids are typing way too young.
That's exactly what my pediatrician said to me. I don't even need to write anymore. He's gonna type.
Yeah, no, we all know it's a fundamental skill, isn't it? She was worried he would fall behind. She was worried about that it would affect his grades. And then she did say something about the peers. Like she could see that the peers were way. Well, I just tried to get this minimized.
And the cost.
Yeah, she talked about therapy. There, it's way up there. There it is. Okay. All right, so we want to try to understand what are the handwriting challenges. Not only what are we seeing in the classroom, but what are we seeing across the board? What are we seeing at home? And causes of messy writing. So some of the reasons and some of the things that might be causing their messy writing are obviously fine motor skills. We also are looking at visual motor integration. How are they? Oh, and the handouts are in your Hoover app too, if you wanted the copy of the PowerPoint. Visually motor integration. How are they integrating what they see and making their hand produce what is the production of the letter, of the word? What are they writing? Cognitive skills. What are they writing about? It's a huge cognitive process. How many of you think when you're writing your name, how to start the letter at the top, where to stop, which way to turn, what's the word you're writing? You know, these are all automatic for us, right? But that child is learning how to write, how to form a letter. They're trying to spell a word. They're trying to write a sentence. They're trying to make it the right size. They're trying to be consistent. They're trying to make it go the right way. So all those things is a very high cognitive process for those younger children. So that there could be some glitch, so to speak, in their cognitive process. Age could be a reason for messy writing, any special needs, learning disabilities, physical conditions. So whereas physical conditions in the past have always meant like a cerebral palsy or some type of an injury, now we're finding it has a lot to do with the technology. So how many of you see children on technology in a nice upwards, wrist extended position where they're like writing on the wall? No. Technology is forcing a child into flexed wrist position. And we don't write with flexed wrists. We write with an extended wrist. And so it's a natural phenomenon. If you let your hand drop, and I'll try this, your fingers come apart. And when you pull your hand back, your fingers naturally come together. So what happens with the grasp is when you're grasping a pencil, your wrist is an extension. It's very hard to grasp a pencil, and it's even harder, and it will cramp. And so those of you that have written long essays back in the day when we used to write our essays and your hands would cramp, right? So it's important that we get that child in an extended position. And one of our favorite ways to do that is put them on a vertical surface. Have them on an easel like they have in the back. Get their wrist in extension. The writing environment, where are they writing? What are they writing on? Are they writing on paper? Are they writing in a workbook? Are they writing on a board? Are they using chalk? Are they using markers, dry erase? Is there a texture feedback? Is there a wide marker versus a skinny pencil? The darkness of their writing. Is it a black marker? Is it a gray pencil? Like, what is their pencil pressure? Children that come in that are stressed and fatigued, that can affect their messy writing. And posture. So we're going to talk a little bit about posture. And there's this other little thing in the bottom left corner, motivation and practice. How many of you have, and this might be, how many of you have kids that are motivated to handwrite? Okay. Are these in the younger ages? What about the older kids? They're motivated? Okay, they like writing.
Yeah.
They're just messy. Okay. So we're going to talk also, if you have some of those low motivation kids, how to address that as well. Okay, so impacts on self-esteem. So studies have shown that there's negative perceptions of people that have poor handwriting. Students are given lower scores in academics for exact same essays that show messy handwriting versus neat handwriting. So they have studies out there that this essay was exactly the same as this essay, and teachers graded them poorly if they had messy handwriting. They have social difficulties. So a lot of these kids, ADHD, and they don't understand their sensory system. They don't understand self-regulation and self-control. So because of that, that impacts their self-esteem. That self-regulation and that self-control affects their handwriting, affects their academics. They're frustrated, and so they avoid handwriting. And the tester bias is what I mentioned on the study. So it's not just a tester bias. I mean, naturally, we try not to be biased, but we naturally are biased if we see a child that doesn't have as high of academic skills as another student, and their writing often affects that. We can have that most intelligent child, and they're playing in the play area, and they're playing house, and they have these big conversations, but when it comes to the fine motor, they might be lacking. Okay, so there is something also called a presentation effect, and that is when your content of the same paper is written more legibly on one and then versus a different. The writer effect, and what I mentioned earlier, the cognitive process, the effect that handwriting consumes an inordinate amount of cognitive resources until it becomes automatic and fluent. So our goal is automaticity and fluency. And those of you that went into the Whova app and you answered my survey, how much does your student do with fine motor throughout the day? An actual study showed that 37 to 60% of the day is fine motor, and 3 to 18% of the day is handwriting. So if you're thinking 60% of this student's day, this child's day, is in some type of fine motor activity, be it typing or technology, we also have handwriting, we have coloring, we have cutting, we have manipulatives, we have all these things, buttons, zipping. And so when you start to think about all the things that consume their fine motor skills, and they're weak and lacking because they haven't had the same experience at home that many of you and I had. So we had a lot more hands-on experience. We were helping mom cook. We were measuring and cleaning. Nowadays there's house cleaners, and there's moms might be cooking themselves and give that child TV or something to look at. Maybe they're working on homework, maybe they're doing something productive, but the interaction has really reduced. Same with playgrounds. Like, did any of you, some of you are my age or older, any of you grow up on a playground nearby that had a teeter-totter, a merry-go-round, or a slide that was 50 feet tall, and two cements, burning hot metal, right? Like, they've taken all that away, and that was part of our growing up experience, was getting into trouble and figuring out how to navigate that, right? Okay, so foundational skills. Posture, what did you see with our student in the video? He was like, do you know what time of day this was? This was 10 a.m. Yeah.
Is he exhausted or just disconnected?
I would say both. I definitely think that he's not motivated. He knows he needs to do better, but he doesn't know what is to do. His mom, he can feel the frustration from his mom. But what I wanted to mention was with the posture checklist. So this is one of our handouts that is we use for checking a student's posture. So what is the table height that they're sitting at? Some of these cafeterias in the public school system are super high, and their feet don't touch the floor. So that also has to look at their desks. If they've got desks with built-in chairs, their feet may not be touching. Paper tilt has a lot to do with right and left. So if your student is right-handed, paper tilt tilts to the left, and if your student is left-handed, the paper tilt needs to tilt to the right. And so that a lot of times can be something we don't think about if you got the left-handed student, as you mentioned earlier. Left-handed scissors. I had a friend, she said she knew her son was left-handed, but every year she bought him right-handed scissors. She didn't realize till like 3rd grade that he needed left-handed scissors. So we have to think about those things. Where is the helper hand? So when your student is sitting at the desk and working on handwriting, the helper hand needs to be holding the paper. Okay, so we want an upright posture. We want both hands on the paper. One's holding the paper, one is writing. You don't want the student to be putting an arm in their lap. And we see this a lot with low-tone students, students that are weak, or if they're putting their hand like this. Do you have any students that write like this? Okay, this hand is the helper hand. One of the things that we like to do is trace their hand and make a cute little handprint and put it on the paper where they put their hand. Because handwriting is a bilateral process. It's 2 hands. The pencil grip, you mentioned the posture with the pencil. One of the easiest ways to do that is put a pencil flat on the table. Okay, you're going to have them pinch that pencil, and then you rotate it up, and you have your pencil grip. So what happens when you put it on the table and pinch it, you can't grip it too far down. Okay, so you're going to just grip with 2 fingers, tuck it back here. You then want to tuck your wrist back, and this pencil, we'll see kids writing like this. Okay, it needs to be in the web space. So some of the different activities that we can do for that is use a hair tie. I'll just show you with my bracelet. And we can tuck that pencil right back there into their web space. Students that are young might grip like this, and that's okay. And we just verbally cue them, fix your grip, and try to get them to do this. Broken crayons are great. Anything small, broken pencils, because they can't grip the broken crayon like this. So we can give them smaller pencils and broken crayons to help with that pencil grip.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, sure.
Since in Montessori we do a lot of work on the floor and in groups, what is your thought about clipboards?
I love clipboards.
Okay.
Yeah.
So in their lap. It's
Well,
okay.
so posture,
Yeah,
right?
that's
So
what
trying to do maybe knees up would be a better posture, a beanbag, where they can be supported in their back and have that in a more vertical surface will help them to get that wrist extension. I also feel like clipboards give them a surface they can press against so that they can get the darker writing.
What about laying down?
I love any position for writing. I'm not grading their writing when they're laying down. So if a student's laying down, their writing is going to probably be worse, right? But if they're doing a final copy of something, I want them to be at a desk, in a chair, in good posture, and writing, okay? And ideally, what we're seeing too is, in Montessori, we have a lot of students that are on the floor and moving around different positions. And in a school system, it's a lot of times just in chair. They don't always have the alternative seating. So we also have to think about what's going on at home. How are they positioned at home? How are they in a chair at home? Are they on the floor at home? What is their homework little area? Do they have a homework area? Do they even have a desk at home? You know, so those are some of the things that you can talk to the parents about. Do you have a little area for them to write and practice school? You know, and I remember my grandmother and grandfather had one of those really old-fashioned wooden desks that were metal on the bottom and the little thing that came up and down like in Little House on the Prairie. And I was so excited to play school, right? So have them make a little school area and they can play school at home. Yes?
What about pencil grips that attach to pencils, those plastic,
Yes.
that put the fingers in certain
I do like those. Yes, I often recommend them. There are so many different ones. That's where an OT can help you to pick the one that's best for your student. So there are many, many choices with pencil grips. There's also a pencil called the Twist and Write which to me looks like we call it the rocket ship, but it looks like a wishbone, and the finger goes through the little wishbone. And so there's certain things you can get to help them with finger positioning. But keep in mind, when they first start using it, their writing's gonna go down and their self-esteem is going to go down. But we can start to implement it and start to get better practice. There is also a component of motor memory. So when you are tracing letters, writing letters over and over, that you add a pencil grip, it's going to be worse at first, but we're not trying to get perfect writing, right? And that's what we're teaching the child is, look, you did it. You did a great job. You know, we want you to practice and we want you to, I try to take the cognitive skill out of it and make it more copying versus how do I make this letter? How big is it supposed to be? What word am I writing? How do I spell it? And those 4 things alone, just let them copy. So if we're working on handwriting, we're gonna copy. If you're working on inventive spelling and letting them write a story on their own, then let them do what they do, right? Slant board. So this classroom is awesome, but in other classrooms, we have very bright overhead lights. And when you have a piece of paper that's white, there's a glare. And how many of you have been like, okay, this is too bright, I need to turn the lights down. But we don't want it too dark because then children can also become very sleepy. And so we want to make sure they're actively engaged and they are alert. And so we can interject activities to help them with their alertness. But a slant board is a way to help take that glare away. So if we give them a little bit of a slant, you can use a notebook, a 3-ring notebook on its side, then that can help. And it also helps because those kids that write like this, it helps them to, a lot of times I think they're writing because that helps them see. So we can get that helper hand down on the table. And then finally, special seating or different seating positions. So sitting on a ball, sitting on the floor, sitting on a chair. Are their feet on the floor? Do they need a footrest? Things like that.
Standing desks.
I love standing desks, especially for our kids that need to move. So my son with Tourette's, one of his accommodations was that he was allowed to move in the classroom. And so they often put him in the back and he could stand up and move around and he could tick and he could do what he needed to do. He did not ever have a standing desk, but I think standing desks are great. Another alternative, any position. Now, we don't want to be at the standing desk like this, right? We want to still be upright. Any other questions? Yes.
We teach cursive to our first year students.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll often come in with that pencil grip, and they've been doing it for so long. Do you have any suggestions as to? Well, you almost feel like you have to have someone standing next to them the whole time they're
Yeah.
writing to remind
Yeah.
them, which is not feasible.
So for me, it's an age and a functional thing. So if they're in 4th grade and they're functionally writing like this, then I'm gonna let them keep that grip. We've all seen adults with crazy hand grip. Anyone in the room have a crazy hand pencil grip? Okay, it can be very functional. So I look at 3rd, 4th grade, I'm looking at function. If they're kindergarten, no, I'm gonna try to change it. And I'm gonna give them some sort of pencil grip. I'm going to try to teach them. There's little sing songs, there's things on YouTube where you can like learn yourself and then teach to the student how to fix your grip, how to, hold your pencil, get them pencil grips. But up until about 2nd, 3rd grade, I try to change it. Okay. All right, so here are some grips that you might see. So the thumb wrap is very common. These are like the early childhood grips. Transpalmer is how they might be fisting, or they might actually have that index finger tucked over top. That's the thumb tuck. So you'll see they might tuck their thumb inside. None of these are functional positions. Okay, so, and this is the bent wrist is the one we're seeing a lot now with the technology. Okay, so your typical development for handwriting is the pincer grasp first. Okay. So those of you in the 3-year-olds working on isolating the index and the thumb. okay? Picking up blocks, pinching things, mini erasers. I love mini erasers. Y'all got one. You like that? Then 12 to 15 months, they're going to do that fisted grasp. You might see a lot of pointing down for 2 to 3 years. Try to get them. This grip just needs a little bit of wrist extension. The quadrupod and the tripod grasps are both functional. So quad means 4. There's 4 fingers or 4 points of contact on the hand. 5 to 6 years old, they should have a dynamic, meaning it can move, tripod grasp. So the tripod at first is very static, and you might see more shoulder movement, you might see some elbow movement, but you're going to see individual intrinsic muscles by 5 to 6 years old. One thing that's really fun to do with these kids is you can give them something in their hand to hold, and that's going to force those fingers down into helping you get the tripod position. Okay, there are also, so I've told you about the getting this pencil back in the web space, getting the fingers down here. There are little, it's called a handy helper, I think, little wristbands with a charm hanging from it. So you can hang a charm or something, you can put a penny in their palm, things like that can help to get those fingers down and isolate the 2 sides of the hand. So with the, if you see at the bottom here, you're going to see there's the power side of the hand and the action side of the hand. Which side do you think is action? Yes, index and thumb, that's your action. When we grip something, our power comes from our pinky and our ring finger. So when you're grasping anything, wringing out a washcloth is a good. So if you've got students with weak grasp, get them in their little kitchen and get them with some washcloths or sponges and have them squeezing water and doing things that help them to strengthen their hands. Then as you get into more isolation, we're going to do more refined things like sewing and putting beads on strings and things like that. So try to look at that student's hand and where is the weakness coming from? Is it the power or is it the isolation? Okay, so this is another one of my students. I have all these permission to post these pictures. So this is little Evelyn, and Evelyn is working on cutting, and so Evelyn wanted to cut like this. So she would cut her page and turn it down. So we worked a lot on bilateral turning of the paper, standing to cut. How many of you let kids cut standing? You ever thought of it? It's an excellent thing. So when the student is standing and they're cutting, they have to cut up. It's much harder to go down because you're cutting away from your body. So you can cut and turn this, we're still cutting up, turn this, we're still cutting up. So having the students stand to cut can help. There are things like bouncy scissors, and I call them bouncy scissors, but they have a little spring on them, and so they automatically open up for you. So Evelyn was in 1st grade and learning to isolate her letters and her writing. And what was fun about Evelyn was she could write a capital E, but then EVE. Her little e was always backwards. And so we worked on lots of different sing-songs and things to help her make the small lowercase e. It was hit the ball and run the bases. Hit the ball and run the bases. And so she would practice E over E over E, and she had fun with that. Okay, 2 sides of the hand, we mentioned this, your skilled side, your power side. And for your grasp, once your child has developed the clear separations of the sides of the hands, then they're ready to hold the pencil correctly. So 0 to 3s, when you're working with those students, if there's not isolation, they're not ready to hold a pencil. You can try some crayons, broken crayons, things like that. Did you have a question?
Real quick, did you say all the slides are handouts?
Yes, they're in the Hoover app.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you. And is it okay to video you when you're explaining like details?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. And I'm recording this whole session too, so if you're interested, you can leave me your email and I'll send you the YouTube link. Sure. Okay, so the Palmer Arch. Yes.
Can we go back to
Oh, sure.
and was the grasp of the clear separation of the size of the hand? You mean the action and power size?
Yes.
Okay.
So we as adults can isolate pinch and grasp without ever using the other side of your hand. So when they can do that, then they're ready to hold a pencil correctly. I see y'all doing this now. Maybe we should make a YouTube. What are
Do you
those?
mind repeating that one more time?
So they need to isolate the two sides of their hands. So this is pinching, right? We can pick up something, put it somewhere. We can tuck these away and do this, right? Okay, that's isolation of that side. And then gripping, I can squeeze things without ever touching it with my index and my finger, okay? My index and my thumb. So once the student can do those kinds of things, and we can do that with clay, Play-Doh, washcloths, right? You wanna see, oh, let's just try without your pointer finger today. Let's see, can you get it? And I'm gonna show you some exercises. In fact, I'll show you one right now. So there's an activity called swirling. I can pass this around, you can try it. You're gonna take out one mini eraser, put it in your hand. Take out another mini eraser, put it in your hand. This is called swirling. Third mini, how many mini erasers can you get in your hand? Okay, so that is a isolation exercise. You guys wanna try? Pass that around. Okay, next slide. So, Palmer Arch. Everyone make a circle like this, okay? Left or right-handed. You have a bowl shape. Check your children, see if they have a bowl shape. If they don't, we need to work on the Palmer Arch. Okay, that's your palm and it has an arch. One of my favorite ways to work on the Palmer Arch is with, who knows what this is? Dice, okay? Throw the dice, write the number, throw the dice, add the two numbers together. There's so many handwriting things you can do with dice and numbers. There's even handouts where it'll say, okay, if you have a number 1, you write this word. If you have a number 2, you write this word. But we're getting them to roll and we wanna hear it click, okay? We aren't just giving them 1. I mean, you can give them 1, but they're gonna hold on to it and then roll it. But if we get 2 or 3 in there, then we have to hear it click, okay? So that's always fun. I like different colored dice, different size dice. There's dice with more numbers. There's dice that have 1 through 12, things like that. So the more dice, the better. Okay, so what are some of the things to strengthen the hand arches? Clay, Play-Doh, rolling on the table. So putty, I like putty. You guys might have Play-Doh. If you see on the line there, it says ball, pancake, hot dog, worm, snail, ball. So we're gonna roll it into a ball. Then we're gonna take that ball and we're gonna flatten it into a pancake. Then after the pancake, we're gonna roll it into a hot dog. And then we're gonna make that hot dog into a snake. And then we're gonna take that snake and roll it up into a snail. And then after we get the snail, we're gonna squish it all back together and start over. So you give them those 5 cues. You write it out. You can use your pictures. You can give them an actual physical object, a ball, a pancake, a hot dog, a snake, you know, little rubber snake, a snail, and make them do them in order and over and over and over. And that can be an independent activity for them. They can also take that and do that at home. Hide items in the putty, great activity. Buttons, beads, pennies, whatever you want to put in the putty. You can hide things and then they have to find it. So for instance, this is my putty, and I'm gonna pass that around and you guys can see like, what have I hidden in my putty. You can pass that around.
Is that silly?
It is, it's actually therapy putty, Theraputty, and that is available, those kind of things are available on Amazon. What I like about the putty is that it doesn't crumble like Play-Doh. You can cut the putty with a knife or a pizza cutter, Okay, that's gonna strengthen that palmar arch because you have to grip onto the pizza cutter and you have to control it. And plus I think pizza cutters are a little more safe with young kids than the knives. Plastic knives are hard to use, but if you get that into a snake, you can also cut the snake and skip the snail. You know, you can do that with it. Has anyone been to Auntie Anne's Pretzels and seen them making the dough, and they roll out and they cut off like that pretzel-sized dough? You could have them doing that. You could have them working with dough that way too. Okay, toothpicks. So take your base of your putty, stick 5 or 6 toothpicks in it, take some extra putty and make little balls and stick a little ball on each toothpick. Holding a handful of object in your palm or pouring rice. So we've got the rice tables. Do you guys have rice tables? Or little buckets, a shoebox of rice. How much rice can they hold? Or how many pieces of corn? Now is fall, it's a great time to work with the hard corn. How many can they hold in their hand before they spill? And they can count, and then they can write it down. So those are some fun ideas like that. Paper tearing requires isolation of finger pinch, and it's strengthening for that. Once you tear the newspaper, you can crumble it into balls. Spray bottles are excellent. Go outside, write some chalk, spray it off with the water. Okay, that's a real good way to strengthen the hands. Towel scrunching, that is taking your washcloth, and this would be a dry washcloth, and you're trying to scrunch it all up into your hand, okay? And then lay it back out, smooth it out, scrunching up into the hand, okay? Let's see what else we have here. Cutting cardstock is harder than cutting paper, so construction paper and cardstock can help them to get their hands stronger. Baggy sealing, so taking these bags, how many of your kids can't open them? And then make them close. Do it again, take something out, put something in. Okay, and then tray carrying. Have them carry a tray like this. It doesn't have to have anything breakable on it. It doesn't have to have their lunch. Just have them see if they can balance a ball. You know, put a marble on there and see if they can, or a shoebox. It's the position of the hand that you're working on, okay? This is, like we can do spiders. It's Halloween time, right? We can do some spiders. Try it on a mirror, things like that. Yes?
Is this, I'm wondering, and I guess sort of guessing that this is more at a primary level where this would be happening. So like,
Yes and no.
3 to 5, or even younger maybe.
I do this with my 4th graders. Yeah, absolutely.
And
yeah.
so these, and so in that case, these are children that have been identified with
weaknesses. Mm-hmm. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, these are students that have messy writing. So these are some of the things you can incorporate to help them. If your student has strong hands and can carry trays and do beautiful writing, then, you know, certainly they can play with their peers and do these things too. They're going to be more successful at them. The other thing that you want to think about with the kids, that you're kind of pre-identifying that they're weak or they need OT. So with a 4th grader, when I'm rolling dice, I'm not just writing a number. Maybe they have to write a sentence 6 times. You know, if you roll a 6, you have to write something 6 times, or 6 sentences. Or are we choosing out of a bag? Take a brown bag, 1 through 6, roll the dice, and when they pull out, that's what they have to write about, or write that word. So you can have different bags. So there's ways to incorporate these activities in the regular lessons. If, at least in like a Montessori or a homeschool setting, this is where we see that we have some creativity and flexibility. When we're in a public school setting, I see a lot of worksheet, workbook, we're doing this, we're reading this. And so as an OT, I have to come in and try to encourage the teacher to incorporate some of these things in their daily work. It's hard to add on, but if we can incorporate already. Same with your students. For let's say your students in 4th grade and they're very weak. maybe while they're in the shower, they could practice squeezing the wash sponges, and maybe they could wash the shower walls or windows, or we can tell our parents these are some of the things that you could do at home to incorporate that. Squirt bottles, have a squirt fight, right? So maybe the little ones were squirting off the chalk, the older ones were having a water gun fight. So. Okay. Any other questions? That was very good. Thank you. Yes.
We did that with my granddaughter in the shower. We got the little soaps that you can write on the wall in the shower, and then a squirt bottle to wash it off.
Awesome. That sounds
And
fun.
that was really good practice for her.
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
Do you have a sense of how long it might take to see some improvement from this kind of practice?
So again, it depends on the ability versus disability. When I start seeing kids, we can usually see improvement within a month. That's a child that's kind of been left behind, and then all of a sudden they're excited, they get more attention, they're being checked in on by the teacher and the therapist. So it really depends on the engagement of the student and getting them engaged in something that they enjoy. So of course, one of the basis of Montessori Foundation, the Montessori education, is to pick something that's interesting to the student. So if they're not interested in clay, or can we give them clay to build a building? Are they molding clay and putty? If they're interested in technology, can we use technology as a pair or a parallel play for them to be able to write about or to compose their sentences or things like that? I'm going to show you a follow-up video that we did with Court, and by the end of the year he had not only improved his handwriting, but he was excited to do all his exercises. And so that's what it was with him, was motivation. Once they start seeing little successes, they become more motivated. Okay, so we're gonna talk about some handwriting issues. Signs of fine motor challenges. You might see they're having difficulty holding their pencil. They have an awkward grasp. They have low endurance, so we talked about where they're leaning down. They might be hunched over, so we want to try to get them sitting up. That might be a weak trunk, so if they're hunched and they're just, when they sit on the floor, we want to see if they could try to sit up. There are cushions that are smaller than this but look like this cushion that are have air in them. So it's not as big as an exercise ball to sit on, but it's a little air-filled cushion that you can put on the chairs that they can sit in, and it gives them that movement. But yet that movement will also help strengthen them and help them sit up better. They might prefer their parents or you to zip them and button them when we really want them to be learning to tie their own shoes. I taught Jordan how to tie her shoes at age 18, and her mom had given up on it at 8. And so that was a big accomplishment. We can always revisit those tasks later. So those of you that have older children that don't tie their shoes, we can always revisit that later. I have a really cool, fun video on that as well on YouTube. Okay, they might avoid seated tasks that involve hand use. So they might be that student that's always doing something like playing house, but they don't want to do the puzzles. They don't want to do the fine motor activities. And they might not be interested in doing crafts and scissors and pencil and paper tasks. Okay, this is my little Joshua. So Joshua and I had some very fun initial sessions where he was into his shaving cream, and we were doing some shaving cream letters. He was very aversive to shaving cream. So one of the things that we did with him was we put it in a gallon-sized bag and then let him play with it without touching it. Okay, same thing with pumpkin. He was like, oh, I'm not going near that pumpkin. So we put pumpkin in a bag, and then slowly we would allow him, he could get the feeling of it without getting on his hands, and then slowly we were able to introduce that. And this was a donut that you can see his hands. He's got icing on it, so he was getting better with that. Okay, so the 5 C's of handwriting instruction. Do they form the letter correctly? Are they consistently forming the letter? Do they have pencil control? Are they comfortable holding their pencil, and how confident are they? One of the things I have to point out on this slide is the pencil control. So if your student is writing on lined paper or using like the LEGILINERs that I have, they have a top line, a dashed line, and a base line. If your student's pencil touches that paper and it's not on the line, it won't ever be on the line. So we have to have the pencil control to go from top line to bottom line and stop. If your student is not even visually putting that pencil exactly on the line, then it's going to be too high or too low, or they're going to miss the target. One thing I love to do for that is dot to dots. So if you have some dot to dots where they have to pencil control and go exactly to the middle. If they're doing dot to dot and they're missing the dots, there's pencil control issue, there's a visual issue, something like that. So check them out on a dot to dot. Formation. So up and through second grade, you can have reversals. So someone mentioned reversals at the beginning. After second grade, reversals are very hard to fix. So those of you that work with younger than second grade, there's a lot of ways to help reversals, and my favorite one, and as I heard in the keynote this morning, we need to embrace some technology, and this is where I like to use technology, is that they're going to trace the letters on an app for letter formation. There are many, many different styluses. One of my favorite ones for first grade and under is this weighted, it's called a cosmonaut, and it's helps them with that proper grip. And then so I don't want them tracing with their finger. I want them using a stylus. There's also mini styluses. I might have one here. They're about yay big. And those students that can trace get that repetition. That will help them with their letter formations. If they're not consistent, they need more practice. And then comfort, look at whether their hand is cramping or whether they're comfortable where they're seating. Okay, so letter legibility. We talked about formation a little bit. Spacing. So with letter legibility, with word legibility, the student needs to space their letters and their words with different amount of space. So we want to teach them what is a big space, what is a small space. One of the things that I learned was spaghetti and meatball spacing. Has anyone done spaghetti and meatball spacing? Okay, so the spaghetti spaces are between the letters and the meatball spaces are between the words. So I like to use the little puff balls as my meatball spaces. And then you can use either a piece of spaghetti, which I think would be the best thing. I have the Wiki Sticks. Do you guys use Wiki Sticks in your classroom? So it's a waxy string, so that's my spaghetti space, or meatball. So you can use a pipe cleaner, you can use actual spaghetti, you can use little brown puff balls or something like that as your meatball spaces and teach them spacing. Spacing, you all got a little. Those of you that are in this corner over here, if one of you would like to come up, it gave you a little spaceship mini eraser, and you can put that in as a space between your words. So there's those three. I didn't get those on those chairs over there. Yeah. Any other spacing techniques? Finger spacing, teaching them the spatial concept. So this is an ice cube tray, and we can tell them to make 3 and skip a space, do 4 and skip a space, 5 and skip a space. So we're teaching them what is that concept of spacing. Okay, you can do that with your little Montessori beads. You can do that with stringing beads. You can string 3 beads, and then the yellow is a space. Okay, but that's a little bit higher level cognitive skill. With older kids, we want to talk about how we have space around our body. We want to talk about space between your numbers with your lining up numbers for math, things like that. Okay, let's see. I'm going to get through these. Sizing, that goes a long way in letter legibility. So if your sizing is off, then we want to help them to have big letters or small letters, tall and small, fall letters that go below the lines. There's lots of sizing And alignment is also placing them on the line. So where are they lining up their letters with the handwriting lines? So on the kids that don't use, I noticed there was a little piece of paper up here for this student. And if they're not using the lines, then how do all their letters compare? So we may not be always using handwriting lines, but how is the sizing of their letters? Are they aligned? Are they starting at the left edge of the page? So we have a checklist for this too. And we're looking at where do they start their points? What's their pencil precision? What's their formation? Do they have top, middle, and bottom? Are they using the top, middle, and bottom lines? Spacing their words, letters, consistent size, the pencil pressure. Erasing well. So how many of you guys teach your kids how to erase? That's a big one for isolation of your fingers. So hand strengthening and erasing, let them practice erasing. So here's a couple of examples of what do you see on this one as far as some handwriting issues? Spacing, okay. Alignment. Placement, yep, you see here how they've missed the line and they're going uphill. Okay. Do you know what this is called? Overtracing. So you might have students that fix it by overtracing. We want to teach them to erase. Okay. Okay, what do we see here? So I wrote this sample for this student. Today I went to PE and we did hula hoop competition. So she's writing uphill. We see lots of capital letters. Okay, we want to start working on lowercase depending on the age of the student. I gave her some LEGILINEs, which were just 2 straight wide row lines to give her the boundary. So you can see now, look at the consistency of her letter size compared to up here. And this is on notebook paper. So when I gave her notebook paper, she went right uphill and didn't even see the blue lines. And then this one has the dashed line. But she did better without the dashed line. Okay. So what do you see here? This is no line paper, which we often use. Think about, go ahead. Wavy.
Up and then coming back down.
Yeah. So lines might help this student. What else? No capitals. Mm-hmm. Sizing. What did you say in the back?
The letters are basically like, the capital letters are the same size as the lowercase letters.
Yes.
And you have a T that's the same exact size as the U.
Mm-hmm. What, okay, so lowercase a, capital B. Why do you think that student has a capital B?
That's what they hear.
This is a BD reversal.
They have a BD reversal. Yeah, so they're, one of their compensations is to do a capital too.
Do you have any tricks for that, the BD?
Oh, sure, I've got lots. Not for today in the presentation, but I am happy to email you some. Yeah. My favorite one is the bed, the B and the D and how it makes the bed. Okay. Hit the ball, run the bases. Anyone do that? Balls, run the bases. Okay. And then deciphering this. The video doesn't talk much about much, but the talk about food and stay healthy and want to eat, but the video and talk about food. Okay. Oh, yeah. Here's another one. Okay, what do you see on sizing? It's within the boundary, but it's all the same, right? What else do we see? Spacing. Okay. Dark overtracing. Very heavy pressure. Look at the pressure difference between this one and this one. Heavy pressure. Okay, when we have heavy pressure, we want to give them something light. This student, I gave him a mechanical pencil. It broke a lot at the beginning. But it helped understand that concept of how heavy do I press. Okay, we can tell, like, depending on how much, where the student is in their learning, they're starting a lot of letters at the bottom. There's not the downstroke on the M, but is it functional? Yeah, so if this is a 4th grade student, I might not worry about letter formations, but I am gonna teach this student spacing, I am gonna teach them pressure. Okay, so you have to know based on their age where you're gonna start. Okay. This one, same ideas, left edge alignment, some spacing. You can see we need to, does anyone teach the red line, that when we get to the red line, we stop and start, you know, the things like that. This child may never have been taught that. They've got a lot of capital letter A's instead of a lowercase a. So this student was actually in 6th grade, and what we started with was left edge alignment and placement. His G was down here, and we did work on that one letter A. We didn't pick apart every letter, we just worked on some of that letter A. So here you have it, some and not others, so this was like midstream. Okay, multi-sensory approaches. Oh boy, we got 5 minutes. Okay. Hearing, smelling, and tasting. Some things you can do: scented markers, using music, using a metronome. Those can help. If your student's fast, like they're ADHD and they write too fast and don't pay attention, let's slow them down. 1 letter per beat. Letter A, B, C. Is that too fast? And it's slower. A, B. Use a metronome, okay? Have some activities, incorporate speed. Teaching them the letters, how to write a letter B. So I say line down, bounce around. That's my letter B. We're bouncing off that bottom line. So some of those verbal cues that you give them, how do we make certain letters, things like that. There isn't much with taste with handwriting, but certainly they can have a little reward if we do allow that or do that at home. We can make cookie dough letters and eat the cookies, things like that. The goal is to help the student connect the sound and the pleasant experience with moving their hands and reinforcing motor planning and motivation. We're helping cognitive processing, motor pairing, auditory input, and smell with physical repetitive action. Okay, so visual cues. We can have the different colored lines: the sky, the fence, the grass, and the ground. We can have a shaded line, okay? This one I'm currently patent pending on my LEGILINERs, and this one we do have in stock. So shading that lower half of the line can help students with their lowercase letters. There are often visual guidelines, like how do the letters go, but that can be confusing to a student as well. So sometimes we just want to pick, what is the student's issue? Let's just work on one thing at a time. We're going to work on spacing for a month and see how it goes. Now we're going to introduce doing placement on the line or something to that effect. You want to help them align their letters and understand spatial boundaries, and then help them with their visual motor coordination and letter recognition.
What was the icon for the dotted line?
Fence. Fence. Sky, fence, grass, and ground. Okay, kinesthetic, tactile, proprioceptive. What are some of the things we do? We do air writing, you know, practicing which letters, writing it on another student's back. One student can write a letter and they have to guess it, and then the other student gives their back and the other student writes on their back. Making body letters on the floor, like can they work together as a team and form a letter M? You know, something like that, or the YMCA, like make them form it with their bodies. We can do writing on sand, rice, shaving cream, velvet. Give them weighted wristband or a weighted pencil can give them more proprioceptive feedback. So if that student has a really light writing, you want to give them a weight to know that, oh my gosh, there's a weight here, and now trying to write. Can we put a little wrist weight on them and let them experience that feedback? Because pencils are very light, but we can give them something weighted. Tracing in gel, finger paint, shaving cream, same as there. Encourage them to use the right amount of pressure to build their strength. And fine motor activities. So there's a bunch more activities. These are all on your handouts. giving them mini erasers. So those of you that got the little mini eraser, there's a QR code there that you can scan that gives you 15 ways to use mini erasers for fine motor skills. We also have flip stamps. So these are two-sided stamps, and they have a stamp on each end. So when we use the flip stamp, we can have them stamp and flip, stamp and flip. Or a two-sided marker, sometimes there's two-sided markers, have them write with one side, flip it, without taking their hand and flipping it. We want them to flip it within the same hand. So, fine motor kit, I brought just a little simple one along. All you need is a bag or a shoebox. Make a fine motor kit, have a little fine motor station, okay? Who would like this? Okay, anyone else? Okay. I want to give it away to someone that would like it. So those of you that would like it, I'm looking for a birthday closest to today. What? February 6th. October 15th? You get the prize. So some of the things you want in your fine motor kit might be a pair of tongs, kitchen tongs, tweezers, stickers. I like Play-Doh and scissors, shoelaces and beads for stringing, mini tops, fidgets, playing cards or cards that they can flip over and turn, push pins, supervised, love thumbtack push pins, push holes in boxes, like take a shoebox and have them poke holes in it. That's a great isolation one. Oh, and this QR code will take you to fine motor exercises. I've got a fine motor resource handout. I've got tons of resources on my website. So here's another one. There's a QR code you can scan from the handouts. Different activities to do bilateral activities. So we want to strengthen both sides of the body. So all of these are ideas for that. Doing different cutting curves, rolling pins, ripping paper. We talked about some of that. Oh, and the tennis ball buddy. So this is my tennis ball buddy. And when you squeeze his ears, his mouth opens. And we want to feed him some pennies. And when you feed him the pennies, then he gets to throw them all back up. So just a fun bilateral activity. And I'll have to find that penny so nobody chokes on it later. But easy, simple. He can stay inside here. This has a slot in the lid, so we can also put the pennies in the slot. Okay, so we're doing things like that. Okay, cutting activities. Dollar Tree OT is one of my favorite resources. 60 things you can get at the dollar store for OT, including earmuffs. Like they have those mechanical power earmuffs that are going to help block out the sound. If you stop by my table, you'll get to see the LEGILINERs. We have them for handwriting, music, and math. And these are some of my happy students that use LEGILINERs on their projects. And we've got 20 different patterns. Got tons of more free resources. I have both websites, legiliner.com and legiliner.net. Okay, I got one quick little video. I know I'm running over. Let me see if this works even. This was Court's final interview.
And what do you remember about the first few times that we met, Court?
It was always so fun, and you had me write, and I remember my handwriting being totally horrible, but now I can actually write pretty decent sentences.
Oh, good. After this school year, then, how is that playing out this school? Do you have any stories of anything that happened during those school year?
These last couple of weeks, I've actually been writing longer stories.
Awesome. And what do your teachers think about that?
My teacher put a note on my report card that I've been working so hard and that my handwriting's getting really better.
Awesome. And
this is a long video, but he was so proud of himself. He could not wait till his mom came to curriculum night, and he said, "You have to look at my paper on the wall." And she went over and she said that it still wasn't quite as neat as the others, but he was just so proud after doing all these things at home. So I encourage you to work with your parents, get them some things that they hopefully gave you lots of ideas today, and the handouts had rest of the few slides on there. So any questions, feel free to email me, or I hope had fun. And who won my fine motor kit? I've got a few more spacers, and if you come to my booth, you'll get 10 mini erasers. You're welcome. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. Anybody else need a spacing tool?
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Yeah, you can have more than one if you want.
This was so informative.
Oh,
Thank
good. I'm
you.
glad you liked it. Thank you so much. You're welcome. Sure.
D's and D's talked about that. I also have a child who's writing backwards,
Okay.
like
Left to right.
yeah.
Okay.
When reminded, she fixes it.
Okay.
But it seems to
You
be-
want to do a ton of left to right things with her. Line up the cars. Play leapfrog. Leapfrog the cars over each other. Animals, line up everything left to right. Shoes, line up left to right. Dishes, line up left to right. Everything goes left to right. And so teaching her to reach left, place right, reach left, place right. And when she feels that, take it over here. Reach left, place right. Okay, so a lot of left to right activities for her.
Okay.
And it's interesting because I had a second grade girl too. Yeah, she wrote her name backwards. And
Yeah.
she would write, then she finally got to the point where she'd write her name, and then the I was the last one she put in. Like she had to go back, and the teacher was like, she can write her name. I'm like, she's out of sequence.
Yeah,
and they didn't
right.
know it because she always had the right letters, but she did like 4 of the letters and then went back and put in the vowel because it was the I know it was very fascinating.
Yeah. It's my daughter. So I'm like,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
what can we do? We shared the same birthday, by the way.
Oh,
Yeah, when you said February 6th, I was like, I was just about to say the same. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
6th grader.
Yes.
High achiever. Like
Okay.
maybe the highest I've ever seen.
Okay.
Handwriting's atrocious.
Okay.
He makes very intricate origami things all the time.
Okay.
I feel like he's probably got fine motor skills down. What else could it be?
Okay. How fast does he write? Do you know if he's capable
I
at a
could
slower
get him to
speed?
slow down,
Okay.
but that doesn't seem to make a difference.
Okay. So you don't know if he's capable of neater handwriting yet.
I mean, I'm encouraged to go home or go back to school on Tuesday and try out the assessments you gave us of writing on the wall and curves and look at posture and stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, I've tried to do some before, but I didn't have as advanced a toolkit as what you just gave us, so it's appreciated. Yeah, I've never seen quality handwriting.
Okay.
I've had them for a couple of years.
Okay. Sometimes we just need to interrupt his pattern. So whatever patterns he's doing, it's not functional because it's messy. So look at the writing and feel free to email me a writing sample because I can sometimes look at a writing and I had a student, high schooler, that wasn't differentiating between H, N, and so all his H's and N's, you couldn't tell, is this an H or an N? So if you're writing house or mouse, it's hard to tell what you're writing about, right? Even in middle school, you're writing about a whole sentence, right? So that's one thing I would look at. Is there a piece of a letter, maybe he's not closing his letter A, and it looks like a U. Okay, so I'd be interested in seeing what is sloppy about the writing. Is it letter closure? Is it spacing? Is it sizing? Can we help him to kind of understand spacing? Okay. Yeah, so definitely would do like teach him about what spaghetti and meatball is, but with a 6th grader, we're not going to really say lay down your spaghetti, lay down your, we're not working on handwriting. At that age, we're working on legibility. So how can you make his more legible? And it might be just a simple thing as you're going to space your words, you need to rewrite this to your words are spaced, and just that space in between words. That may be the one thing that makes it more legible. It could be a pressure, whatever that one thing is, start with that one thing. And then when you've been working on that a month, say, make sure you're giving him feedback that how much better he's doing, or if he's not doing better, then maybe it's something else, or maybe we need to figure out a different way to address that same problem. So if it is spacing and he's not able to get it, is it a memory thing? Is it You know, why is he not getting that? What is he not practicing at home? Is he not practicing in any other classes? Now, in 6th grade, is he changing classes, or is he always under your care?
He's always under my care.
Okay.
The prolific writer.
Okay.
Has very long stories.
Okay.
I can't read them.
Okay. And there is a point in time when we then move to dictation and typing. So if he's a good story writer, then have him read his own story into a recording app and see if he can, or tape recorder or whatever, and see if he can read his own writing and tell the story, then have it transposed from recording into typing, and then, you know, help him have success with something that's a need. So there's a time when we adapt and move to accommodation, and it may be his time. So don't know. But yeah, look at it and let me know. Yeah, feel free to email me a work sample.
Are you heading back to
Yes,
the,
I am. Gotta
okay.
clean up here. We'll see you over there.